Hello, hello. I'm wondering who else might be hanging out with us. I'm coming from Melbourne. It is now 6 o'clock in the evening, and there were some traffic issues because, as some of you might know, we are going to be hosting the Grand Prix really, really soon. So they're building that around Albert Park Lake, and that decided to get in the way of me getting to this Instagram. No, it's not Instagram. It is Facebook Live on time. But here I am and wanting to chat about the really cool stuff that's happening with the first Australian Spotlight, which is really awesome. So I know that we have got a couple of people, yay, hanging out and saying howdy. So this is just going to be a really informal chat just around what's happening in Australia, the sorts of things that we're seeing as well, which is really, really fun. There's lots of teacher-led innovation here, so I'm going to be getting probably a little bit over the top excited about some of the stories that I'm going to share with you. I'm going to share with you a little bit about the work of education change makers. So any questions that you have as well, just let me know. The main sort of stuff that I wanted to share through this live is that we have got 1 month to find the best of the best in teacher-led innovation across the state of Victoria. So Victoria is kind of, how would I describe it? You all know Australia and how it's sort of shaped a little bit like that. We're kind of right at the bottom. So Victoria is the home of sport. We have the Melbourne Cup, the Australian Open. We've always got something sporting happening, the home of Australian football. And our mantra, even though we're all about sport, written on every license plate, on everything that you see around state government of Victoria, we are known as the education state. So it seemed pretty relevant for us to then work alongside the cool folks at HundrED, and for me personally to become a HundrED ambassador, but to work alongside HundrED and find amazing innovations in education so that we could put them on a global platform. So some of the work with EC, we find teacher-led innovation, we unleash it, and we share it with the world. So you can already see the synergy with HundrED is pretty clear, which is really fun. And the kinds of things that we're seeing, we see like a little bit around strict pedagogy, but we see a lot around how you can make the structure of school better. We see a lot around engaging disengaged students. I've just come from a meeting with one of the best principals that I know. I love her so much. Massive shout out to Donna. She is based in New South Wales, but she's in Victoria at the moment working with Berry Street, which I think actually might be a Victorian innovation, a HundrED innovation. And they've got really aspirational parents in their school, and really low socioeconomic background. So some really exciting things that we were just planning there, which is really fun. But I get to work in my job with tens of thousands of teachers all across the world, just hearing their stories and then helping them to lead, you know, bigger practices and bigger lives, which is a real dream come true. We also run the fastest growing education festival in Australia, most radical. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, look, it's probably one of the best learning events for education professionals that anywhere in the world. It's called Educhange, educhange.com.au. It is, you know, the ideas baby of EC, and I'm really lucky I get to curate it and design it and lead it and have a lot of fun with it. And last I came along and the HundrED crew, and we really launched this idea of, could we find really cool teacher-led innovations and could we share them? And we were like, of course we can. So we launched that last year, and in October, on the 2nd of October this year, we're going to actually launch the Spotlight at EC18, and then on the 3rd of October we're having a big party, a big innovation party, and you know, all of those teacher-led innovations that we have found will be the real stars of the show. So I guess I've kind of had a bit of a chat around the kinds of stuff that we do. And if there's any sort of questions that you want to pose before I kind of get into some of the formal bits and pieces, let me know. If you have curiosities about Australia, people usually have curiosities about Australia and all of the crazy things that we do, but look, we're not that crazy, to be honest. We we tend to love the same kinds of things around innovation and working with like-minded people. That happens in the Northern Hemisphere as well, but I guess we're just a little bit of a smaller ecosystem here, which is really fun. But if there's any questions that you have, please do feel free to let me know. But there's a couple of things, I guess, that I'll kick off and I'll share. So I got into talking really strongly about EC and about the work that we do, because obviously I love it, but I should give you a little bit of a background on me and why I get to do this kind of stuff. One really fun fact is I've worked in every sector of the education scene in Australia that's possible. I've worked in independent schools, in Catholic schools. I've worked in private schools as well. I have actually done work in every state and territory of this country. I've worked from state government up into federal government and beyond, and I work in through Sustainable Development Goals, Global Teacher Task Force, so we work right into the UN. So it's all sorts of stuff that I do. I've worked at all different levels, which is really fun. But I believe that teaching is the best job that you can have, and I believe that school is the very best place that anybody could spend their day. So that's what I work really, really hard to make sure that everybody knows. Massive cheerleader for the education profession, which is really fun. The EC team kind of got together maybe about 7 or 8 years ago with that whole idea of what if an organisation existed that could equip, support, be a real advocate for teachers doing great work. And if policymakers at the end of the day said, well, let's listen to the cool stuff the teachers are doing, then we would know that we were really on the right track. So that's why we exist. We exist to unleash teacher-led innovation. And I think HundrED exists to unleash education innovation that's disruptive and radical and does really cool things. So it's a really nice synergy. So I'm going to do a quick check-in. Any questions? How can we apply for the HundrED Victoria Spotlight? My goodness, I am glad that you asked. So the best place, you go to HundrED.org, and the website is so clear and beautiful that it will lead you right into spotlights, and you can see Victorian Spotlight. A couple of things that we're looking for. I think a few people are thinking it has to be this like kind of big Elon Musk style innovation. That's really nice. And if you have something like that that is tearing apart at the seams of what school and what education, K-12 education looks like, amazing. So we know that Playground Ideas, for example, the great work that's coming out of Geelong Grammar and their Positivity Institute is really cool stuff. I mean, the big key here is submit your innovation. We'll decide from there. There's a panel of people. I have the privilege of sitting on that panel with Lasse. We've got Laura McBain from D School at Stanford. We're growing that panel every day. And we have some really clever minds, but people that get just as excited and enthusiastic about the awesome stuff that teachers and school leaders do, that want to profile great practice on a world stage. It's going to be profiled in some way or another. The best thing to do is just submit your innovation. There's buttons all over the HundrED site. Submit your innovation, and it's a really easy form. And of course, if you want any support, just get in touch. I'm EduSum on Twitter. You can DM me, you can tweet me. Like, if I haven't made it clear enough, like I lose sleep over this kind of stuff, that if I can find a way for a teacher to put their innovation out there, that's the kind of thing I'm doing. So just tweet me, just get in touch, just go through the 100 Spotlight website, or we've got some through ecideas.org as well, which is really fun. So there's sort of a couple of questions that I wanted to address. And one, do I enjoy being a 100 ambassador? I love talking about teaching. I love talking about cool stuff that's happening in schools. So do I love being a 100 ambassador? Yes, very much so. And frankly, I think that's our job. We need to promote that there's amazing things happening in school. There's such a deficit narrative. You know, education is broken, school is broken. I don't see that. I don't see that. I think teachers, no one wants to be a bad teacher. They just often don't have the tools or energy or networks or whatever. And that's why we exist. EC exists for that. 100 exists for that. So being a 100 ambassador, it's important that we get those eye rolls over the dinner table. You know, someone's going to be talking about teaching and cool stuff teachers are doing. Again, happy to get those eye rolls. That's part of my job in being an ambassador for not only for 100, but for the teaching profession and for educators as well. And I think that with that, what I love about 100 is it's global, and those global connections are super critical because we are then able to scale what works. So I often think about it as in a doctor. Like if I found the cure for cancer, I would be shouting that across the rooftops. I'd be telling everybody because it's going to save lives. If you find something that improves school or schooling or the teaching profession, you know, outcomes for kids, resourcing, whatever it might be, share it. And 100 gives you that platform to be able to share amazing things that work. So global connections are critical because no teacher really works in isolation. And I think that whole idea of us constantly iterating what's working, testing good ideas of others, I mean, that's learning. Innovation and learning go hand in hand. It's about always getting better, pretty much. I'm going to check in on the questions for a minute. I think we've just got one there around how can we apply. So just keep those questions coming, like whether it be around you wanting specific examples. I'll be online for another 5 minutes or so. I've always been described as being overly enthusiastic, and I think that's coming through right now. And I'm fine with that, by the way. You'll see, I think it's even part of my Twitter profile that I'm overly enthusiastic. So I think if we're also looking at the sense of community that 100 puts into the world, that EC puts into the world, that we're kind of really rallying around, where I see a big statistic, 1 in 2 teachers leave in their first 5 years, and I think that's because there's a lack of community. The 100 ambassadorship program offers that sense of we're kind of all on that same pathway. I think that idea of community means that more great teachers would stay, that more great practices would be shared because, you know, everything would be far more conversational. So something that I can definitely provide into the community is specific tools for unleashing innovation. Absolutely. I've got the best event in the whole world. I'm going to put it out there. Last day you were there, so I know that you know that it was fantastic. Not fantastic. I know that you think it was the best thing because it was. That's something that I can offer as well, that you come along to the most accessible professional development event, definitely in Australia. But community needs to have lots of conversations around stuff that they value. I think we need to be cheerleaders for each other's work as well, which is really great. So just continue to think about the 100 community as a place where you can really geek out about amazing education innovations, share it, find examples of people that are doing stuff that's really, really cool, and go from there. So a couple of other questions. Edupreneur, the book. Yeah, that's cool. It's a cool book. I've got this really fun photo that I'll share into the community of the day when we were kind of writing the scaffold of the book. We actually wrote it on hundreds of post-it notes, and it was sort of like a program logic of the book. We wrote it because we want it to be a playbook for innovation in education. It's the only reason we wrote it, to get to people that we might not be able to work with and who might not be able to hang out with the EC team in person. We're all about equity and inclusion and accessibility, and the book was just another play at that, pretty much. You can get it at Edupreneur the book or through educationchangemakers.com. Where do I see the 100 Ambassadors program going in 10 years? We are going to be a life force, as we already are. I would see us consulting in with the OECD, with the UN. I think that we will have some real policy plays, and too often innovators kind of go, oh, policy, that's boring, I'll park that. I worked at a national policy level, and I think it's a massive lever for innovation. So I'd love to see that we were influencing curriculum, teacher standards, initial teacher education, all of those sorts of things. It's really, I think if we do this right and we become the biggest cheerleaders for educators, I'm not tied to the idea of school. I think like school is where good education happens right now, but educators come in many forms, like good learning that improves the life outcomes and opportunities. Quality of opportunity is what it's all about. So the 100 Ambassadors are going to have a massive play and a very, very loud voice in that, which would be really fun. There's a question here, Elizabeth. Hello, how can we work together? How can you and I work together? Mate, we can start tomorrow. Twitter's a great place to start with that. All about highlighting what is positive, making small ripples of change. You know what? I worked with a really remote school in far northern Queensland of Australia. It's called Doomadgee. It takes as long to get there as it does for me to get to somewhere like LA. Like it takes a really long time. It's really remote. And I was chatting with Arnie Rose, who is an elder in that community, about schooling and school and the kinds of things they're doing around attendance. And I said to Arnie Rose, how can we make these ripples of the great stuff you're doing, or, you know, how can we support the community? And she said, go and tell our stories. Tell our story to anyone who will listen. You've got this great community and this great world stage. Tell our stories. So Elizabeth, I think there are many ways we can work together. If people are enthusiastic, I'm super keen to see how our formal and informal work can collide, our vision and our mission. Tell stories. That's what will create those ripples of change as well. And collaborating and connecting with other teachers. I'm still a massive fan of Twitter. And I'm a massive fan of getting in a room with other clever teachers, being really present, and that time and that space to work together. So the 100 Spotlight is a great example of that, where we will be not only sharing stories, but kind of like putting little fire starters into the room as well, encouraging people to be present with that mindset of sharing teacher-led innovation. So, mate, just through this ambassador community, let's keep catching up and keep sharing stories. I guess that's probably the last words for me. I'm so looking forward to meeting other ambassadors. I don't know if this has been the best way to run a WEB-nesdays or a Facebook Live. It is my first. So you basically got kind of currents of the river of my thoughts. But I'm really looking forward to, you know, maybe jumping in and doing another one that's a bit more directed down the track. But hopefully by kicking off and showing it's not really that scary, that other ambassadors will come and have a bit of a chat, a bit of a yarn, a bit of a natter, and tell us what's going on in your country. I'm so proud of what's happening in Australia with our great teachers who are so connected and so passionate. It's all about the kids. I heard that over and over in the meeting that I had today with a really brilliant principal. And if we can maintain that and think at the core of it, it's all about bright young futures for bright young people, I reckon that we're right on track. But if there's any way that you think I can support you as a 100 ambassador in the work that you're doing, in telling stories through the work that I do, and vice versa, don't hesitate to get in touch. And we've got a really easy way to do that through our Ambassador Facebook page. So I'm going to sign out now. Lee, get on a chat on the page there. If there's stuff you're reading, if there's stuff you're watching, if there's stuff you're geeking out about, if there's any cool innovations, do let me know. If you are in the state of Victoria and you're watching this later, HundrED.org, please share the cool stuff that you're working on. Don't think that it is not innovative enough, or it's ordinary, everybody would be doing it. What's ordinary to you is extraordinary to others, and your idea might just change the game for kids. So it's important to share it. You have a professional responsibility to do so, actually. So over and out from Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, and I really look forward to chatting with you all soon.